So you thought those 8 were bad enough. Look at the next 8. They even get worse, especially when you get to the coverings. Boy, talk about censorship, wholesale censorship. Would you like to know when this was done? Hold on. We're going to show you.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Al Fadi, and with me here in studio, of course, Dr. Jay Smith. And we've been going at this book, the book that we have called our series after, Creating the Qur'an. And out of this, we had also shared with you numerous other sources, such as the book by Dr. Daniel Brubaker, this one right here, and many other additional resources that we've been sharing with you as well. What was the point behind all of this, especially the last few episodes, is to show you visually that the Quran cannot be a perfectly preserved book. Evidenced by the photos taken, in this case by Dr. Daniel Brubaker, of existing early Quranic manuscripts that show beyond a shadow of a doubt words that were erased, words that were added, words that were inserted, words that were written over erasures, and the list can go on and on and on. We showed at least 8 damaging examples last time, and common denominators between all of those corrections that were made in these 8 examples is that someone was trying to standardize the reading to match the popular reading of Hafs. Today, it will be no exception. We're showing you 8 more examples. Dr. J, thank you again. And what are these additional examples that we are going to share today?
Absolutely. Let's continue on. These are coming straight out of this book here. You can buy this book, actually, and you can either get it in color, like I have here, in color, or you can get it in black and white. Of course, the black and white is a little bit cheaper. Get it in color because it's really a well-done job. You can get it on Amazon.com. Let's go to the slides again, and let's continue. We're on number 9 here. This is, again, going back to the Topkapi, which is in the Topkapi Palace, which is there in Istanbul. This is chapter 66, verse 8. And you can see the word Allah has been added. The Aleph is already there to begin with, so it looks like they were starting to write something there, and they quickly put in Allah in the margin there at a later time. It's in a different nib. Do you notice that?
Right.
So, very small nib.
Why was it forgotten, or where was it? What happened to it? Was it erased?
Obviously, now this you could say may have been a scribal error, and Daniel is willing to say that it could be a scribal error.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, the Allah is there in the Hafs text.
But it was added later by a different scribe using different style of writing, which means it took a period of time before it was discovered.
Yeah. So when later? We're going to get to that at the end of this episode. We're going to talk about when we think all this happened. But hold on to that question, because let's go to this one here. Here is the Petropolitanus in Paris, and it's the chapter 3, verse 171. Obviously, this is an erasure that is overwritten of the word bounty. Fadlin. Bounty has been written over the erasure. You can tell it's a completely different nib. Can't you notice
Exactly.
that?
I mean, anyone would see this, even if they know Arabic, it's going to catch their attention immediately. It's like, why is this word was written this way, stretched completely, as if it was trying to fill a space?
Yeah, and it's the one that's underneath. Daniel says we don't really know what that word is underneath, but it's clearly between 5 and 11 original letters. This correction is clearly a much later intervention, but interestingly, like we've said with all the others, it now conforms with the 1924 Hafs text. Let's look at number 10 here. Here we have 2. Now, this is fascinating. I'm giving you 2 examples from 2 different manuscripts in the same surah, the same ayah. It's surah number 34, ayah 35. And we're looking at the NLR Marcel manuscript versus the Petropolitanus one that is in Paris. Both of them at the very same surah, at the very same place, have erased Kala, he said, and have introduced Kalu, they said. Now, what's interesting, Kala always is, or Kul is always God speaking. In this way, it's he said, it's a person. Now it's becoming they, it's plural.
That's right.
Obviously, whether it's a person or people, that's going to have a change in meaning concerning the context of that. In both these cases, at the very same place, they didn't try to hide it. They want to make it plural because that is what the Hafs text said. In these manuscripts, it was singular. It had to be made plural on top of that. Okay, that's 11. Let's go to number 12. Now, number 12, these are erasers leaving gaps in the top copy again. The top copy has a real lot of these problems here. And the newest research that's been done on the top copy, it looks like it's a mid-8th century manuscript. It's there in Turkey. We're at chapter 4, verse 167. The first eraser, number 1, look at the yellow arrow. It has a letter of Allah that's beginning there, and then you go to number 2, the second, which is the blue arrow coming down on the next line, shows the shadow of what was first written, which was Allahi. God, Allah has already, the blue arrow. Now, originally, it used to say, surely those who disbelieve and hinder from the way of Allah have strayed far into it. Now, with those changes, surely those who disbelieve and hinder from the way have strayed far into arrow. So you can see Allah has been missing, has been taken out from the first time, and because the Hafstech doesn't have the word Allah.
And that's damaging, by the way. Strayed from whose teaching? Muhammad's teaching? Allah's teachings,
obviously,
the scholars' teachings.
Yeah.
Who's teaching?
Yeah, you can see that. Number 3 that he has there, which is the yellow arrow. I meant to say the yellow arrow to begin with. Another eraser can be found. He hasn't really looked into this to understand the significance of that, so that's yet to come. He's writing, by the way, a whole nother book. It should be out very soon in the next few months, where he's going to get into this new material that he has yet to show. Number 13, we look at eraser leaving a gap. This is in the Doha manuscript, which is in, as you say, Doha is in Qatar.
Qatar, yes.
And it's Surah 24, Ayah 33. There's an eraser at the end of one line. There's the green arrow. And the beginning of the next line, blue arrow. So you can see it starts at one line and continues down to the long line. It occurs after the word fadlihi, his grace, and before wa. Alladina are and those who. Now, there's no way to know what this word was, or 2 words, or maybe even a whole phrase. We don't know. What we do know is, because they've erased probably a number of words there, a phrase itself, it now corresponds with the Hafs text. That's damaging in and of itself. Number 14 here, this is, here we have a eraser which is overwritten of an entire line, nearly an entire line, and that is in Surah 8, Ayah 3. What's there obviously was not there before. We don't know what it's replacing, but it's replacing probably a whole verse. And notice that the initial aleph of the following verse is also added. It now conforms with the 1924 Hafs text. So they have really censored this one to get to the Hafs text in this case. Number 15, this is the one that we showed earlier. I'm not even going to try to show you all the 8 different coverings there. This is the Husayni text, the Husayni manuscript, the huge manuscript that they have there in Cairo. And it is a they call it a monumental text. It's so big, and it stands about quite a few feet high. Take a look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Everywhere you see a green arrow is a covering. Covering. It is so covered that what is left behind just almost looks like chicken scratches. Yeah. It's so difficult to read. And Daniel says he has a problem with this because he doesn't know what's left behind, whether or not he hasn't even done the work yet to see if it corresponds with the Hafs text, because it's been so much censorship. But that's wholesale censorship in that case. And then the last one I want to show you is this one here, where you have another covering. This is the same Musaf. This is the Cairo Musaf that's there in Egypt. And you can see at the top there's one line, and at the bottom you see the second and the second last and the last line, number 2 and 3, where there has been covering overwritten over top. And it's a totally different script. It's an elongated. They've had it elongated so that it can accommodate the space that was left before. It's obvious an entire phrase has been eradicated, has been in chapter 13, verse 11 and 12 of the Qur'an. But what's now there, what is left behind, is that which we find in the Hafs text. So those are the 16 that we want to look at. Now, what I want to end off with, the question has come up, and Dan Brubaker was asked this question. He's been asked this in public. So when did this all happen? And some people have thought that Dan was saying this has all happened since 1924, because that's when this was made standard. No. Daniel is very clear, and people are putting words in his mouth. And please, people, listen to what I'm saying. This did not happen in the last 100 years. This has happened since the 13th century.
That's right. Hafs been around and became more and more popular around that time.
It's the Ottomans
Exactly.
who are the ones that chose Hafs. And what's more important, people need to realize that the Ottomans controlled the whole empire since 1299. That's the 13th century.
And they had access to these manuscripts.
Not only that, they would probably have had these manuscripts. They probably brought them back to Istanbul and then sent them out as gifts. That's what you do. You give them as gifts to different clerics. You give them as gifts to different emissaries or political giving. That's still going on today. So these were all controlled by the Ottomans. And the Ottomans were the ones that had the consonantal texts that you see in this Quran. That consonantal text is the one that was used from the 13th century on. So they had these manuscripts in their possession for 600 years. Over that intervening 600 years is when all these changes were happening. It doesn't even mean that they brought them to Istanbul to change them. They probably went down and they took the Hafs text and they used it as a standard to make all these changes. That's why they're so crude. Have you noticed how crude they are? They don't really care if people notice this. They just wanted to make sure that when someone read it, they read it the right way. They were not interested in historical criticism. They're not interested in textual criticism like we are. But can you see, by doing that and being so clumsy about it and being so careless about it, they absolutely destroyed any notion that this has been preserved eternally, because this is man-made manipulation all the way through. Man's imprint is all through these texts. And you can see this continues right up until the 20th century.
Thank you, brother. That's fascinating. And that's what we will continue to do, of course, in the next episode and many episodes to come. I think we are already up to 70 episodes of this series, the longest stretch we've ever had, by the way. But you can see why. It's worth it, because we're really tackling a lot of things from a historical standpoint, from a Quranic textual standpoint, and the list can go on and on and on. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone. This is Al-Fadi. God bless. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Sira International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.